Hello, I am Bookface. Welcome back to this bit, because we're just gonna stick with it. Now, something that might not seem entirely relevant to this bit that's going on, I don't really much like dragons. They're too generic in my opinion. But dragon Pokemon, now you have my interest. Maybe. Still debatable. So, basically, dragon-type Pokemon for the most part. There are some Pokemon based off of dragons, and that's what we're talking about today. But first, there's a little important note that I've read multiple times in various different sources on dragon books that I think is actually kind of interesting, and is also part of the reasons why dragons frustrates me, and yeah. So let's get into that real quick. Mostly because it's kind of important from a cultural perspective rather than just like, dragon. So technically speaking, there are a lot less dragons than you might think. And this isn't me being that pedantic, oh well technically it's not a dragon, it's a wyvern because it's only got 4 limbs instead of 6. No, that is, I'm gonna be honest, that annoys me so much because that is the most pedantic kind of point you can make, especially because technically speaking, wyverns also don't breathe fire. So if you have a fire-breathing dragon with 4 limbs, well, then technically it isn't either of them. It's a mystery. But no, there are less dragons in the sense that, technically speaking, the only creatures that legitimately fall under the term dragon are from Europe or Asia, as those are the places where the term dragon originated. And while the Asian idea of dragons and the European idea of dragons are very different, they're at least somewhat linked to the point that they are a connected sort of term. And you might think, well, no, there are other places with dragons. And there are a lot of dragon-like creatures throughout the world. Serpents, reptiles, giant monsters, or just generally epic mythical creatures that are very similar to the dragon, mostly because dragon is almost always just a sort of a conglomerate of the most epic monster you can think of. It's why people class things like the Chimera and the Tarrasque as dragons, or dragon-like, even though technically speaking, they really have almost no details that really relate back to the Western or the Eastern dragon. So, for the most part, dragon is basically just a term that's a very arbitrary categorization, like most categorization actually. But the thing is, in cultural meaning, it can be a bit of an issue. Now, take something like the Ninkananka of Africa. It's a reptilian creature, it's big, it's dangerous, and it's a sort of just, kind of a monster. It might have some localized connotations and significance, but ultimately it's a big old monster. Now the problem is when you take something like the feathered serpent from Mesoamerica, like Quetzalcoatl, which has also been called a dragon for, the fact that it's big, it's important, it's a reptile, and it has wings. A lot of features shared by most forms of dragons. But that's a deity. So calling him a dragon is really downgrading him a bit, even though dragons are admittedly very cool looking and very interesting. A deity is something very different, and reducing it to essentially a really cool animal is kind of an issue. It oversimplifies and can undervalue myths and really trivialize their whole cultural significance, and that's a bit of an issue for a lot of times. Okay, that's my TED Talk. I had to get that out of the way because I think that actually is one of the important things to note. Now, let me just go back to doubling up on my nerd status with myth and Pokemon. I wonder if I'm just going to have the high-energy Pokemon music during that whole very important cultural discussion. Boy, why not? I think that fits my channel quite well. And with all that out of the way, there was a lot of that. Let's jump right in. Woo! First up, Mo-Oh, I choose you. Psst. Oh, why am I making the sound effects? I have editing for that, why am I? Now this is the creature that inspired Kommo-o from Alola. And much like how the region of Alola is just Aloha with the tiniest little change of 1 letter, the Pokemon itself is literally just the Mo-O but with 3 letters added on. Nintendo is so creative. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm about to get sniped by Nintendo's Okay, so right off the bat, we have one where calling this a dragon requires a good deal of simplification. The Mo-O were sort of spirits, were sort of nature spirit kind of things that often appeared as monstery lizards or geckos, and sometimes they could turn into humans if they were feeling spicy. They were often seen as almost sort of ancestral spirits and were sometimes even revered as minor deities in their own rights. So yeah, a little more important than a dragon. I just had a just had a little minor heart attack because for a second I thought I wasn't recording.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
That would be a nightmare. They were thought to have a lot of mystical powers, including the ability to control water and the weather. In today's forecast, the magic lizard has an attitude, so we're all going to die. Mo'o were believed to reside in specific pools of water, and there are some bodies of water known for having specific Mo'o in them. Whenever a Mo'o died, its body would, instead of just, rot, its body would become a part of the surrounding landscape.
So what's my name?
I don't know if that joke is a reach or my best creation ever, but ultimately I feel like I should be ashamed of it either way. Additionally, they're sometimes seen as particularly aggressive in their guardianship of water, fresh water specifically. And that may be the reason that it's a dragon fighting type, which could have very easily been a dragon water type, but there are a lot of water dragony creatures, especially considering Japanese myth has a ton of water dragons, and Eastern Asia always associates dragons with water anyways, so they wanted to change it up a bit. I feel like it's a fair change, fair trade-off. Next up, Carp Dragon, I choose you. Okay, so this is Gyarados and Magikarp a little bit, and it's a little bit... So this is a Chinese legend, but it's less a kind of dragon and more a story that involves dragons and how some of them are born. I've decided to put in my notes of Liu Long because Liu means carp and Long means dragon, and there's a phrase. But also keep in mind I pull that term directly from my family-friendly body part of undisclosed location. Okay, so I'm definitely going to leave it in that other recording, the first one. So basically, I had a little minor freak out because I didn't see the little recording thing in the top corner of my phone, because I record these on my phone because I'm a scrub. And I was like, oh no, it would suck if I did this whole first section without recording it. That would be awful. And so I'm like, to be safe, I'll record this in two bits just to, in case something goes wrong with the first recording, I'll only have to redo the second recording. I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. So I did that, except apparently I didn't start the second recording. So I just spent Lord knows how long, probably like 10 minutes, doing a pretty good job at reading the rest of my script. And then I realized, oh God, it wasn't recording. So I'm going to redo all that again. So if I sound a little stiff doing some of those jokes, keep in mind, I already did these. Now, this legend was more often called the Dragon Gate or Long Men. I like Long Men, so... that's unfortunate. So basically the story goes, a carp would jump upstream, just keep going until it reached a waterfall, and then it would jump up that waterfall. Parkour! Pretty metal. And for its endurance and strength and determination, it would be rewarded by becoming a dragon, which is some pretty mystical stuff. Almost like it's some kind of magic carp. This Dragon Gate was believed to be located somewhere on the Yellow River. I don't know where it would be, but yes, you're looking for it. So this dragon is sometimes described as being golden in color and would just kind of fly off. This is notable because A, Gyarados is a water and flying type, not an actual dragon type, which is probably just because they wanted to save the dragon type only for the Dratini line. But, actually I don't know where I was going with that, so I hope you know. And also notably, since it's a golden dragon, should point out that the shiny form of Magikarp is specifically not only a golden coloration, but also sort of like shinier to the point that it looks like it is made of gold. So that's notable. Lastly, we have Pang. I choose you. Go. Do it. Wow. This is Waluigi this time. This is the creature that inspired Altaria. And I think Altaria gets a little too much hate. He's not my favorite Pokemon, or even my favorite dragon. But come on, people, chill out. Altaria's not that bad. I think I'm just kind of projecting my own insecurities onto a Pokemon here, which, is a fairly regular occurrence actually, but we're gonna pass by that. So it's a fairly well-known little bit of trivia that Altaria is based off a mythical creature called Peng. And people don't really see how that makes it a dragon. And therefore a lot of people kind of just think, well, it doesn't really deserve the dragon type. So Peng is a giant bird whose wings are so big that they can block out the sun. And these wings also look like clouds, which is basically just what Altaria's design is. Impressive, but not really dragon-y. An interesting little detail about Peng that doesn't really come up in Pokemon, but I think is notable, is that Peng actually started as a giant fish called Can, which definitely isn't the evolutionary line we were all expecting. Imagine the outrage, already have the outrage of Cloudbird Dragon, but imagine if to start out it was basically a Magikarp. That would really confuse people. That would be more Digimon kind of style evolution. Okay, so yeah, on the surface, doesn't really feel like much of a dragon. Frankly, if you see my video on French dragons, which you should, this is honestly close enough. So I have a minor detail to make my point, and then a larger detail to make my point that kind of makes the first one unnecessary. I am padding out the playtime of my video. Like, comment, and subscribe. First off, I've been finding out a lot about Chinese dragons because I have a book that brings them up a lot. I'm like, yeah, good book. Good book. Talks about them a lot. And one recurring detail I've noticed is that a lot of times dragons have scales that are described as being fish-like. Now, if you'll note, since Kun is a fish, and also initially what Peng was, this could sort of give a vague connection to at least some dragon-y details. Now, granted, it's a very loose connection, and also doesn't really fit with Altaria much, since Altaria didn't evolve from a dragon, it turns into a dragon, but I think it's at least notable enough to mention, and pad out the runtime of my video. But here's some better evidence. So yeah, Peng, not much of a dragon. But Peng Niao, on the other hand, is very much a dragon. I don't know what voice I was going for there. Peng Niao is a dragon that looks sort of like a hybrid of dragon and bird, which really fits well with Altaria, even its typing, which is dragon and flying type. Peng Niao is described as having serpentine body, feather-like scales, a dragon head, and the lower body of a bird. Now, granted, I guess I didn't find a source saying they're connected, but I feel like it's pretty fair to say they're connected. Now, Altaria doesn't directly fit either of these, since the cloud wings and bird features definitely ring more towards Peng, but the dragon typing and all that sort of rings towards Peng Niao. I don't know if ring is really the right word there, but you know where I'm gonna go with it. My assumption is that Altaria is probably a hybrid of these two mythical creatures. So stop cracking on Altaria. Altaria has plenty reason to be a dragon. All right. Whew. Okay, I haven't been so tired from a Pokemon video in a bit. Editing me, put in the injured. What is this? The low health sound effect that happens in a Pokemon battle. That's where I'm at right now. I'm tired. I'm kind of late starting on this. I had to re-record bits of it, so yeah, I've had a long day. But despite that, I'm actually very proud of this video. I think the script went well. I think the drawings went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with this. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye!